I'm Mark Sponsler, and welcome to the Stormsurf Video Surf Forecast for the week starting Sunday, February 21st. Stormsurf, waves, weather, buoys, altimetry, snow, temperatures, El Nino, weather analysis, real data for outdoor people, all the time, no hype. Looking at significant wave heights for the North Pacific Ocean, we see an area of some seas of interest, we'll say. 23-foot seas off of central Canada. Another area of 24-foot seas in the northwestern Gulf. And yet another area of 24-foot seas off the Kuril Islands. So there is some activity in the water. Let's get into the details. As usual, we'll start by looking at jet stream level winds. These winds about 30,000 feet help support the formation of gales, and when gales form, it helps to direct their track. We're looking for a trough, a dip in the jet, and we kind of really don't have one. We have a decent flow pushing off of southern Japan at about 160 knots, let's say, maybe a little bit more. But we want to see the jet dip to the south, and what that helps create is a counterclockwise flow aloft and down at the ocean surface. And if that flow is strong enough, if the winds are strong enough, they generate seas. Seas, if they're high enough, start radiating away from the fetch area and eventually turn into swell. Swell, when it hits your beach, turns into surf. Okay, but we don't have really any troughs. We have a flat flow pushing off Japan, and then it kind of pushes off to the northeast, pushing into central Canada, and even the flow off Japan is kind of split. There's a flow there, and then it all kind of loses itself somewhere over the date line. Some of the energy falls south. It splits off. This is a split point here at like 170 west, and most energy heads off to the north. So not a particularly favorable pattern at the moment. We put this into motion, but also, though, notice strong flow pushing into Canada. That's where at least some weather would be occurring. As we get into Monday, more of the same, this sort of split pattern off of Japan, only getting more pronounced. And you look at this, and it just looks like the jet is getting ready to tear apart as we get into Tuesday, which it sort of does. So main flow up here, kind of pushing into Canada down the coast there. Big gap in between. There's the southern branch. And in between these two streams of the jet, typically high pressure develops. And we know for a fact that that is going to happen. Broad high pressure just taking over the Gulf of Alaska. Now we do have here we go. Here is a bit of a trough forecast on, we'll say, Wednesday night, Thursday. That should support some gale development. Winds not particularly strong. And there, more winds feeding it, building as we get into Friday, and then lifting off to the north, not doing a whole lot. Big split continues here in the east. Another trough tries to develop as we get into Saturday. But again, look at this big ridge here. High pressure in control. That trough, anyway, as we get into Sunday, continues off to the east, makes it to about the date line, gets pushed up into the Bering Sea. That looks like what the storm track is, and then from there, the jet is split the whole way back just off of Japan. Maybe some hope right somewhere along the Aleutians here, but that's about it. At least that's what it looks like from the upper levels. Let's go down to the surface and see what that suggests. Here we are, surface level pressure, surface level winds. Weak high pressure off of California today. 1030, almost 1040 millibars, so that's a little bit stronger than weak. North winds along the coast, they're pretty brisk today, all day. A bit of a low trying to organize here somewhere in the Gulf. Little patch of 30-knot winds there. Not too impressive. Another low off the Kuril Islands with 40-knot west winds. Trying to do something there. Let's put this into motion as we get into Monday. High pressure still in control. The low in the Gulf not really doing it. It's not even barely a gale. 35-knot winds right there. Also 35-knot winds off of the Kuril Islands. Doing something to generate some seas, but nothing too impressive. We get into Tuesday. A new low tries to develop off the Kuril Islands. Only 35-knot winds, but there we go. 40, maybe 40. Oh, even 50-knot winds over, maybe 100 miles, something like that. Not much of a fetch area. And then there is some activity up here in the northern Gulf, and it builds as we get into Thursday with 50 knot winds supposedly, but very close to the Canadian coast. I mean, you just get the sense all the activity, storm activities right here. High pressure in this area, 1040 millibar, just locking things down, driving the storm track sort of in this pattern, up and over the high. As we get into Thursday, 1044 millibar high, a little bit more on that in a minute. Low pressure here. Another gale tries to organize off Japan on Friday. One of these actually is supposed to wind up pretty decently. This is it. As we get into Friday evening, 55 knot winds, maybe almost 60 knot winds, a long ways away, but still. Oh, there we go. That's a good looking fetch there as we get into Saturday morning, but that is 6 days away. I don't know if I would believe that quite yet. It just looks beautiful, just starting to barrel towards the dateline. Very much a tease, very much not believable, not honest, probably a mirage, but we'll keep our eyes on it just the same, and supposedly another low over Japan. The big issue, again, is the jet stream, just not particularly favorable over the North Pacific Ocean. All right, let's go take a look at the wave models. So on Friday, we had a bit of a pattern. This is just a couple days ago. Low pressure trying to develop on the dateline. Another low off the Kuril Islands. You'll see that. They generated some seas. What's that? Barely 28 feet. Another area, 23-foot seas. And this fetch mainly aimed northeast, not even east. Still, some swell has been generated. This was as of Saturday night into Sunday. Some swell there, and then another system started building off Japan. There we're current right now. So there is some swell in the water heading towards California and sideband energy towards the Hawaiian Islands. Now here we are today. We put this in motion. Both these guys pretty much fade out. Yeah, a little bit of this first one tries to move into the Gulf. The other system off the Kuril Islands on Monday continues off to the east. 26-foot seas, 25-foot seas, something like that. Good for maybe some energy for Hawaii. I mean, the big issue is we're going to track all this stuff, but there's something, at least relative to California and certainly for Hawaii, that's going to be more the issue, and it's the high-pressure system here, and we'll get into that in a minute. Anyway, another low pushes off the Kuril Islands, generates 30-foot seas, supposedly. Little system along Canada here on Thursday night. This is completely out of anywhere but maybe the Cape Mendocino swell window relative to California, just way too north. Then the big system forecast on Friday night into Saturday. This is hearkening back to the late December, early January time frame with 55-foot seas supposedly aimed east. Would love it to happen. Don't want to be a downer here, but we're not believing that as of just yet. But if it were to happen, some long period swell could result sweeping across the Pacific for both Hawaii, U.S. West Coast, even up into Canada. Looks really good on the models. Let's give it about a day and a half and see if it's still there. And then down south, so there was some southern hemi swell this past week. Nothing huge, certainly not in Northern California, but select spots in Southern California had rideable shoulder head high surf at the top spots, from the south. And then second system developed with 28-foot seas or so, pushing, only targeting like South Central America and up into, for the most part, Southern California. That system faded out on Monday. We'll go through last week because another system did develop under New Zealand, 32-foot seas and lifting actually a bit off to the northeast. Some swell is likely from this for Hawaii, later in this coming week. Nothing huge, but some rideable small swell and maybe even something into Southern California. And then the jet started falling. Whoops, can't see it here. It started falling to the south. Let's go take a look at the forecast now. Here we go. These look good right there, but watch their motion. Falling southeast just doesn't do anything for swell production, and we're just going to blast through the next week because the short answer is there's not a whole lot going on. We're out a week from now and virtually nothing. I mean, you want to see at least 30-foot seas, and we're not even close. And you want to see it aimed at least to the east, but preferably off to the northeast. Nothing there. So at least a little bit of a hint of a summer pattern trying to show, the southern hemi trying to wake up. Also notice, look at the ice here. Almost no ice. That's great. I mean, you have this giant area of ice-free water, so you can get storms down to 65 south or more, and they can generate swell. Once we get into the July, August time frame, the ice line comes up to like 60 or 62. All this is completely locked in. And yeah, you get storms over here, but they're not going to generate any swell at all because the wind cannot get to the ocean's surface to impart energy to it, start generating seas. So now's a good time. And typically, it's more like March, April. That's when you start seeing things starting to wake up down here. So it's a bit early, but we're keeping our eyes on it just the same. All right, wind swell production for Hawaii and the U.S. West Coast. Certainly, there is north winds, 20 knots. I mean, this isn't too impressive right now. Hawaii has a broad fetch here of 20 to 25 knot winds aimed right at the island, so east shores will get wind swell. Let's get into Monday. Things back off a little bit. You see, look at the expanse of high pressure right in here. What is that, 1036 millibars? That's high. More trades, solid trades for the Hawaiian Islands. It's typically in the springtime when you see just high pressure comes roaring in, especially on La Nina years. We're into Tuesday now, 1038 millibar high, filling the entire Gulf of Alaska, 30-knot winds building off of Northern California. Certainly good for creating wind swell. More east trades, 20 knots plus for the Hawaiian Islands. We get into Wednesday, where was that? 1034 millibar high with another high building west of it, pushing in. Again, 30-knot north winds just nuking down the North California coast. 20-knot trades, backing off. Oh, nope, rebuilding again for Hawaii. And then as these two highs join up, where are we? 1042 millibars. And I think it goes up, there we go, 1044 millibar. That is extremely strong, bulletproof high-pressure system. To me, that looks like the beginning of spring if there ever was. And typically during La Nina years, you get this strong high pressure setting up in the Gulf of Alaska, nuking north winds, upwelling along the California coast, piles of wind swell, but even if there was ground swell in the water, you'd never see it because the wind swell just takes over. The one exception being protected spots in Southern California. They can see it. And of course, the South Shores of the Hawaiian Islands. But again, where are we here? Thursday, and 20 plus knot trades. Good for wind swell production. At some point, the winds are going to nuke relative to California, and that looks like Friday it does again, 30 knots, 1044 millibar high, extending from Alaska the whole way down to Hawaii and beyond, from California out to almost the dateline. That is a solid and broad high pressure system indeed. All likely fueled by La Nina. I think yesterday this was even up to 1046 millibars for a short period of time. Anyway, we're into Friday night, 35-knot north winds along the California coast. Certainly wind swell to result. 15-knot trades for Hawaii. Saturday, it even solid 30 to 35 knots along the coast. At least the high breaks down a little bit by then. And where are we? Let's get ourselves into Sunday. Sunday, things lighten up a fair amount. When the wind dies, so does the wind swell. If there was some other swell lingering underneath, well, that would be good. Hawaii, wind swell in control. And there we are, almost into Monday. At least things clear up, supposedly, a week from now relative to California. Hawaii still covered in solid, strong trades, not unexpected during La Nina years. Precipitation relative to California. Now, with the high pressure system, we would expect no precipitation, and we'll just, spoiler alert, there isn't going to be any. But where north of the high, where the jet stream is, that's where the precip's going to be. And you see it all let's see, there's the Canadian border right there. So up in there, moving into the Pacific Northwest down to, we'll say mid-Oregon. So maybe even a little bit south of there as we get into Monday night. More on Tuesday. Fades out a little bit on Wednesday. Then it starts in the north again Wednesday night into Thursday. Same target. Here's your massive high pressure system, maybe even more defined in this image here. All precipitation doing the up and over thing into the Pacific Northwest as we get into Friday. Saturday, it backs off a little bit. And then the high looks like it's going to start moving inland towards the Great Basin, but no, here comes more high pressure behind it. Just kind of unfortunate, and that's the name of the game. Nary a drop for California. Quick look at Squaw Valley snow forecast dashboard. No snow to be found. Snow levels. This is the base of Squaw, 6,000 feet. This is the top of Granite Chief Peak at it's actually about 89 and some change. The red is, or actually the gray where it transitions to white is the freeze level. Freeze level up around 10,500 feet, dipping down a little bit on the 24th, only to rebound again, dipping down again on the 28th, and then at a more normal level, but then rising. I mean, this all just very much smells of high pressure, smells of springtime, smells of La Nina, and none of it is particularly conducive to anything good. I think I saw a report that rain amounts in the we'll call it the Bay Area, but it was a broader area than that, are about 42% of normal for this time of year, and we're supposedly in the peak of the heavy precip season. That does not bode well. I mean, once you get into late April, May, it pretty much dries up, but we're probably looking at just making something up 30 to 35% of normal by the time we get into May, assuming some miracle doesn't happen, but that doesn't seem likely given what we're seeing on the charts. Wind levels, not an issue. Pretty light winds, high pressure in control. Smells like the start of spring. All right, let's go take a look long term. What's going on with the Madden-Julian oscillation, that periodic weather oscillation that travels from west to east on the equator, crossing the Pacific in two phases, active and inactive phase. When in the active phase, it helps dampen trade winds, helps promote movement of warm water from the West Pacific to the East Pacific, not on the surface, but under the surface of the equator. It takes about 3 months for warm water like a ball of warm water to make it underneath from West Pacific to East Pacific. If you get successive active phases of the MJO and they're strong enough and they create Kelvin waves, those Kelvin waves, when they erupt on Ecuador, can help usher in El Nino. We do not have any belief that that's going to happen anytime soon. Of course, we'll be discussing La Nina and El Nino. All right, so first off, the MJO discussion. Looking for the active phase of the MJO. This is the East Pacific here. This is the West Pacific here. Here's the equator, the date line, international date line right there. That's New Guinea there. We're looking at data from the TAO buoy array, a series of buoys strung across the equator used for monitoring El Nino. The arrows, that's all we're looking at, are 5-day average wind speeds. We see trades out of the east pretty strong. The longer the arrow, the stronger. It's pretty strong over the East Pacific. Same over the Central. And the West Pacific, where Kelvin waves are created from 170 west, 5 degrees north and south of the equator, to about 135 east. So this area right here is, if you get the active phase over there and it's strong enough, it can take these trades and either significantly reduce them or out and out reverse them. That's what we're looking for. We're not seeing it today. And we look at anomalies. So this is the actual winds right now, but winds come and go. They vary. But it is the anomalies, the difference from normal for this time of year, and that's what this chart says. And it shows maybe a little bit of some westerly arrows. So the trades here in the East Pacific are weaker than normal. And they're about normal in the Central Pacific. but a little bit stronger out of the east than normal in the Kelvin wave generation area, indicative of the inactive phase of the MJO, or at least La Nina. Let's go look at the forecast. So here we go. This is kind of a strange chart. It's the whole planet on one chart, so we got to get our bearings. Time down the side here, so you get to see how winds have varied. And this is, we'll see if we can pull this down here. See it? 850 millibar zonal wind anomalies. So that is, are the winds more out of the east or more out of the west than normal? And that's all we care about. If they're out of the east or stronger out of the east, which we don't want, it's blue. If they're more out of the west, which would be the active phase of the MJO, then they're red. All right, now, date line is right there, right up the middle of the chart. Kelvin wave generation area starts just to the right of that, just to the east of that. So from there to 135 east, right there, that's the Kelvin wave generation area. And that's where, when the active phase is over there, it can create Kelvin waves, and that's where it's best to also impart energy to the jet stream to feed the storm track. So as of right now, we see mainly east anomalies, indicative of the inactive phase of the MJO. But we have this little pocket of pretty strong westerly anomalies trying to make its way into the Pacific, not quite doing it. And then we look at the forecast. This is just over the next week, 7 tick marks, 7 days. Building easterly anomalies on the date line, just barely in the Kelvin wave generation area, and our westerly anomalies backtrack, moving over the maritime continent towards Bali. Not of interest. So nothing particularly good here, but nothing too raging either at the moment. Now we can go out 2 weeks, but this is not winds. This is outgoing long wave radiation, another component of the Madden-Julian oscillation. Okay, when the active phase moves over, oh yeah, let's get oriented here. Equator right there, date line right there, South America, Central America, Mexico, Hawaii, New Guinea right there, Kelvin wave generation area right in this area right here. The blues mean less sunlight reflectivity off the ocean's surface, negative anomalies, less sunlight bouncing off, more cloud cover. That's the active phase of the MJO. So the active phase of the MJO is over the Kelvin wave generation area. Interesting. But winds are stronger from the east than usual. So that suggests, well, the active phase isn't that strong. And here's the inactive phase over in the Indian Ocean. All right, go out 5 days, active phase. This per the statistic model. Active phase still in control, starting to move over the date line and beyond there, 10 days out, and pretty much gone east of the Kelvin wave generation area at 15 days out, with the inactive phase moving into the Kelvin wave generation area. This per the statistic model. Now the dynamic model paints a little bit of a different picture, and we'll leave the last, see if we can get, there we go, the last frame of both in. Statistic model says active phase there, weak, and then trying to rebuild a little bit 2 weeks out from now. So a bit of a disparity between the new two models, but not super much of a disparity. Upper level model here. So this is kind of a strange chart. So there's South America, Central America. There's the equator right there. Date line roughly there. New Guinea right there. So Kelvin wave generation area right here. And this repeats, I don't know, 8 times, 9 times in 5-day intervals, I believe it is, out to 40 days. So this shows precipitation potential. The yellows and oranges, not favorable, the inactive phase of the MJO. The blues, favorable, roughly equating to the active phase. So right now, this looks like the inactive phase in the East Pacific moving inland, some sort of weak active phase, making its way across the Pacific and into, we'll say, Central America on maybe towards the end of March. A inactive phase behind that. So, I mean, if there was a sweet spot for storm development, it would be happening in the next 2 weeks, supposedly, according to this model, but not sure if that's completely true. With La Nina as strong as it is, the MJO doesn't seem to be a major influencer at the moment. Anyway, the inactive phase moving its way across the Pacific in the mid-March, later March time frame. Some sort of very weak active phase behind that. I mean, just not a very coherent pattern at all in the upper levels of the atmosphere. Then we go out 1 month. This is the CFS model, long-range model. Again, whole planet on one chart, date line right down the middle there. Kelvin wave generation area starts right around here, up like that, ends somewhere over here. This is zonal wind anomalies again. The blues are the east component of the wind typically. Oh, and the dotted black line here, that's the inactive phase of the MJO. So you can kind of see little bits of hints of what was the active phase that we're in today or just coming out of. It appears to be fading. Easterly anomalies building this over the next week, a little bit more so a second week from now. Then the inactive phase comes in solidly with building easterly anomalies. None of this really conducive to storm development. And if anything, what you see is if during this week easterly anomalies are in control of the Gulf of Alaska and building, it'll be interesting to see what happens when the inactive phase of the MJO moves over the Gulf of Alaska. That'd be somewhere around here in the mid-March time frame. Probably a lot of east winds, a lot of wind swell. And then finally, the 3-month CFS model. So we have a problem believing models, like a week out. So 3 months, kind of fantasy land. But this model actually does a reasonably good job. Kelvin wave generation area starts over here about 135 east. The Hoyop chart goes up to about 170 west right here. Okay, so right down the middle of the chart is what we're looking at. Now, past performance is down here. This big area of the blues, easterly anomalies, this is what actually fed the jet stream, believe it or not, made giant surf in the Pacific there in the December-January time frame. And then when the active phase set up, westerly anomalies tried to build in. That just shut everything down, and typically that's when you'd think you'd get surf. Well, it didn't work. And now we're moving into, you can see here, another area of easterly anomalies from now into, about the end of March time frame. And then westerly anomalies start setting up supposedly and building pretty strong. You get the sense, so this is basically the La Nina signature easterly anomalies. You get the sense that maybe the last gasp of La Nina, at least for this season, is supposed to be over, and we maybe start returning to almost a normal pattern. Let's overlay the MJO here. All right, so the solid contour is the active phase of the MJO. No surprise with westerly anomalies. Here comes the dotted contour, the inactive phase, moving over the Kelvin wave generation area into about the beginning of April. Typical, you'd see these easterly anomalies. And then the active phase. The model has had a hard time past this. Yesterday it had the active phase, all this one cohesive active phase. Now it sort of splits it up. But either way, it's suggesting a return to a more normal pattern with westerly anomalies moving into the Kelvin wave generation area. Let's overlay the low pass filter. This is the El Nino La Nina indicator. All right, so this dotted contour here that's has been filling the Kelvin wave generation area, high pressure bias. The good news is it's peaking, appears to be peaking right now. The fourth contour is supposed to fade in early April. The third contour fades in early May. The second contour, some versions of this model have had it fading as early as May with one contour in control. The low pressure bias, which is currently over the Indian Ocean, is past its peak at the moment, expected to fade and track east. This line, between these two lines right here, if you scroll down and really do this, it's about 175 east, which is almost on the date line, which would mean the low pressure bias is actually moving into the West Pacific. We think this is a bit of a tease, but this is what we're going to keep our eye on and see if it verifies. Somewhere in the, April time frame, you also notice it starts shrinking in size. I mean, it was somewhere in April that there was actually a couple of days ago, even more significant decline in its size. So there's some sense that maybe in the May time frame or late April, we'll see a change in the pattern. Maybe. Or it could just be a tease. Hard to tell. All right, enough of the MJO. Let's go look at what's going on in the ocean. This gives us some indicators of La Nina or El Nino. Again, data from the TAO buoy array. This is the East Pacific here, West Pacific here. So this is looking down into the ocean, down 100 meters, 200 meters, 300 meters. That'd be about 900,000 feet, something like that. These are the sensors on the anchor lines of the TAO buoys. The sensors collect data, radio or beam it up to satellites. Then they apply a model to the data to fill in the gaps, and then you get a profile of sea surface, subsurface temperatures across the Pacific. And you clearly see and this is centigrade. Warm temperatures, very thin in the East Pacific, much broader in the West Pacific. The 28-degree isotherm, which is 28 degrees centigrade, locked where it's been for weeks now, 165 east. 24-degree isotherm, oh, it was a little bit deeper, but it's been noodling around, what is this, about 25 meters. We'll say at 20 to 15 meters deep. So a very shallow area of warm water here and cooler water at depth, it looks like. But this is actual temperatures, actual 5-day average temperatures. We want to look at anomalies, the differences from normal for this time of year. And what you see is, yes, there is much cooler than normal water, 4, almost 5 degrees below normal here in the East Pacific. That's actually built lately. And much warmer, 3, 4 degrees centigrade above normal, locked in the far West Pacific. We need some major Kelvin wave to come in and start allowing this water to migrate to the east. So literally, you'd see this bubble of water start moving off this way, wiping out this cool water, or probably more realistic, what you'd see is this would all be gone. It'd just be near neutral here, and then a big swoosh of warm water come across, and that would signal the beginning of El Nino. We do not think that's going to happen, especially with this solid pocket of cool water there. It has to dissipate first, which means easterly trades have to dissipate, and we know by looking at the charts with a 1044 millibar high set up over the Northeast Pacific the next week, all that's going to do is promote more upwelling, stronger trades on the equator, and more cooling. So La Nina in play for now. A different model, same raw data, basically suggests the same thing. It suggests these cool waters aren't quite as cool in this area as compared to what we saw up here, which is good to see. This is probably a more accurate model, and that the warming temperatures here are actually warmer than what they're suggested in this model here. Still quite warm, so there's a major imbalance going on, and nature abhors an imbalance. It wants to get us to homeostasis, to everything being the same. So the way this would correct, again, is warm water swooping into this area. But for now, with the trades in control, with high pressure in control, with the high pressure bias over the dateline, all that suggests there is good coherence between the ocean and the atmosphere, at least for the moment. And that is typical. They are in sync. They are coupled is what they officially call it. That is, what the ocean's doing and what the atmosphere are doing are one and the same. They are in lockstep with each other. But at some point, that system will break down. Quick look at sea level anomalies. Okay, it looks like water temperatures, but what this is the height of the ocean. Jason 3 satellite passes over, makes a bunch of passes over there, and little stripes of data. And what they're doing is they strip out the wave heights, they strip out the wind waves, they strip out the tides, and they see if the sphere of the ocean is higher or lower than normal. The blues, minus 10 centimeters, so that's almost normal right there. But minus 5 centimeters, minus 10 centimeters, minus 15 centimeters. So what that means is, one, strong trades here, pushing water literally off to the west. The exact opposite of what you'd want from Kelvin waves, which would be trades reversing here and taking warm water, pushing it off to the east. And also what you have is cold water at depth contracts a little. That creates a divot on the ocean surface, a little depression. So that's what we're seeing here. And all this is just basically confirming what we saw in the other data from the TAO buoy array. Colder waters in a giant triangle really from, we'll say, Point Conception out to the date line and beyond on the equator, and the whole way down into Chile, southern Chile. All this signs of a mature La Nina in control. Upper ocean heat anomalies, another way to look at this over time. Here's March of 2020 to almost March of 2021. You see last year we had warmer than normal. Upper ocean, so this temperature's 0.6 of a degree above normal. And then this is for over a broad area from the date line almost to Ecuador. You can see temperatures in that area. They dropped, rebounded, and then they've plateaued, leveled off at about 1 degree below normal according to this chart. Another way to look at this data, again, upper ocean heat anomalies, time series from March, or was this February of 2020 through today. And you can clearly see, this is West Pacific here, this is East Pacific here, the blues, colder than normal temperatures. The beginning of La Nina, May of 2020. Okay, cold water showing up in the East Pacific. Backed off, a little bit of a Kelvin wave, warm water from the West Pacific seeping off to the east, but not much. It faded in August, and then boom, broad upwelling, the peak of our cold waters in the Halloween time frame, continuing to date, and warm water building. At some point, the floodgates will open, and this warm water will start moving off to the east when the trades collapse. But right now, with the ocean coupled with the atmosphere, that does not seem likely anytime soon. We are in, right now, we'll say, pretty much the peak of, at least from a seasonal perspective, of La Nina. If all this were going to come crashing down, the earliest we would expect that to be happening is maybe somewhere during the summer, something like that. But the jury's still out on when that would happen. All right, sea surface temperatures. Chile right there, South America, Peru right there, Ecuador there, the Galapagos there, the equator running right along there. Then you go up into Central America, Mexico, Baja. You can see the blues are cooler than normal temperatures, whole way out to the date line. That big triangle down into Chile. Now, the one thing that's kind of interesting, you see warm water building here along Ecuador, over the Galapagos, trying to make its way off to the east. This was actually looking pretty good a couple of weeks ago. It backed off. You see this stream of cool water trying to build in there, but it seems to be losing ground the past couple of days. The bulk of the La Nina cool pool right now is out, south of Hawaii, all on the equator. That's what matters, is the equator. The official El Nino monitoring region, the Nino 3.4 region, starts at 120 west, so south, there's Point Conception, south of California, 5 degrees north and south of the equator, out to about here. So, and you bound it right there out to 170 west, so it's actually a little bit past here. The balance, clearly colder than normal, indicative of La Nina. But we're always looking for a ray of hope. And you can see, so this is the 5-day average sea surface temperature trend. 7-day. So it's 7 days doesn't really make a trend in terms of El Nino and La Nina. But you see, reds are warming temperatures here. And actually, it was much warmer yesterday. And for the most part of this week, it's been warm. There's a little pocket of cooling right there and right there. But you get the sense that water temperatures in large are trying to warm on the equator. Now, that doesn't mean they're warm. They're just warmer than being cold. So here's the backed off view, sea surface temperature anomalies. You see, yes, there is some warming trying to get organized here. We want to see more of it, because if the trades are blowing this way and you start getting warmer temperatures here, that actually we think will knock the trades down some. And that warm water will start building its way across the Pacific, and that'll start knocking the trades down the whole way across the Pacific. And then that opens the gates for a real Kelvin wave and an active phase of the MJO to build over here. And notice there's a lot of warmer than normal temperatures here. This stuff down here and way up here doesn't play into it. It's only on the equator, 5 degrees north and south of the equator. That governs everything. This is all residuals driven by what's going on right here, and this affects the entire planet's circulation. So that's why we harp and watch the Kelvin wave generation area here to see the effects of what it has in the Nino 3.4 region here, and of course to monitor the MJO. Actual sea temperatures, sea surface temperature anomalies in the Nino 1.2 region. This is the area right there along the Galapagos and Ecuador. Down a little bit the past 2 days, not even a half degree below normal. But prior to that, if you were just to draw a line right through this, it was only maybe a tenth or maybe 2/10 of a degree below normal. And that's up considerably from where we were back in November, where we were almost, 1.25 degrees below normal. So this is looking encouraging, but this is not the official El Nino monitoring region. This is down here, the Nino 3.4 region, even it making a slow, steady foray towards warmer temperatures today at 0.623, 623 thousandths of a degree above normal, a little bit below half a degree below normal. Half a degree is the cutoff for if you're there for 5 consecutive months. So we're not even in the minimum threshold to be out of La Nina yet. And we don't expect it to be because, let's see if we can do this. Where's those temperatures? Right. So right here. Because all this cold water right now is in the bulk of the Nino 3.4 region. So it's no wonder that, where are we? Back down here. Here you go. That temperatures are still below the threshold. But you notice they are warming, and the cold water that is in the Nino 3.4 region isn't as cold as it was back in the fall. That's kind of a good sign, but is it enough of a good sign? That's the debate right now. So we talked about the ocean and the atmosphere being coupled, and one way we can see what's going on in the atmosphere, just every chart we've looked at so far for the most part in regards to El Nino, La Nina has been in the ocean. But the Southern Oscillation Index, difference in pressure between Darwin, Australia, and Tahiti, they've been keeping records on this for quite a long time, 150, 200 years. It's pretty absurd how much data they have daily. Somebody's looking at a barometer, taking the barometric measurements and then mapping them out. If the pressure is lower in Tahiti, I'm sorry if I said temperature, I meant pressure. If the pressure is lower in Tahiti than in relative to Darwin, the index goes negative. And if it's negative over a long enough period of time, that's indicative of the active phase of the MJO. If it's positive, inactive phase. And if it continues even longer than that, then that can be a sign of the development of El Nino. Right now, we're positive, and well positive, 19.79. But one day does not make a trend. You can see, though, looking back for the past month, nary a negative reading to be found. So we take some of the noise out of these numbers. We average it over 30 days. Today's value plus 14.73. We're at 14.87 there a while. And we've been higher. You can see we were up in the mid-17s in mid-January. So still pretty high, but not as high as we were. The 90-day average, like a 2-month lagging indicator, still going up. We're plus 15.55 today. You can look back in time. We've been in the 12 to 14, now 15. This doesn't mean this is what we are today. This is a culmination of data from over the past 3 months. So again, it lags by, let's say, a month and a half, something like that. So this still suggesting clearly in the La Nina range. We can graph out the 30-day moving SOI, Southern Oscillation Index values. Back in 2019, you see we're negative here, -5, -10, indicative of sort of a weak El Nino sort of thing. And then in 2020, you see the trend started lifting, slowly positive. By July, the last big active phase we had was right around the beginning of July, which also, and the SOI dipped negative. That also coincided well with a major southern hemi swell. Probably the biggest southern hemi swell we had all last year was right in this dip here. And ever since then, it's been the sky's the limit up to 20 or 21 in January. A little bit of an active phase of the MJO going on now, and we saw that in the data, but not enough to get a Kelvin wave going, not enough to reverse trades. Pretty weak. We need to see this guy consistently falling, and I don't think that's going to happen quite yet. And then finally, the official sea surface temperature forecast from the CFS version 2 model for the Niño 3.4 region. This is the doom and gloom model. I think we talked about this last week. It's the only model that's really just, all the other models are saying, we're going to move to neutral. When this guy gets there, then I think I'll believe it. This model actually has done a pretty good job over time. Anyway, all right, so the solid data here, the solid line, is actuals, sea surface temperatures. And today, we're like right here, right? It says a half a degree below normal. That's about where we are, maybe 0.4, something like that, or maybe 0.6, somewhere in there. The forecast says that's to hold into April, but then temperatures fall off the chart again down to 1.5 degrees below normal in October fall, suggesting a return of a pretty solid La Nina for this coming fall and winter. That's a year from now. We're trying to make a projection a year out based on one model. Now, again, all the other models suggest a return to a neutral state. We are in the spring unpredictability barrier, that period from, we'll say late February and maybe late May, where the models have a really hard time knowing what's going to go on, especially if there's not a clear signal one way or the other. You see this one little member here suggests, maybe moving towards El Nino, but all the other runs and members suggest no, a fall downward. So we're keeping our eye on this. For right now, we're not believing it, but we're kind of keeping it in the back of our mind that maybe this will be a 2-year La Nina. The good news is, if that's the case, yeah, it's horrible in that the surf probably won't be that great this summer. There won't be any hurricanes in the East Pacific. That's probably in the bag anyway. In the Pacific, Atlantic, the hurricane season will probably be pretty good with La Nina in control. That does a lot to prevent shear on the hurricanes there. But if you get 2 years of pretty decent La Nina, there's going to be a mountain of warm water in the West Pacific, and when La Nina does break down, the odds of swinging towards a significant El Nino are a lot better. So something to consider. Way too early to know. All right, so for right now, a lot of wind looks like it's coming. There is potential for swell. There's a significant storm forecast on the models a week out. Again, we don't believe it, but something to keep our eyes on. We'll see what happens over the next couple of days. You can go to stormsurf.com to sort of follow along, watch the wave model, see how all this plays out. Anyway, there are storms forecast across, or gales we'll call them, across the far North Pacific, riding over the high pressure system. So there could be some swell for Hawaii and for California, and some small southern hemiswell is in the water already, traveling to both those locations. So if you can get a spot out of the wind, that would be great. You can maybe get some swell. If not, copious wind swell driven by a very strong 1044 millibar high pressure system is forecast for this coming week, so that's an option. It will be sending water temperatures down, probably both in Hawaii and the U.S. West Coast, driven by upwelling. Beyond that, we're waiting to see. We've got to get out of the spring unpredictability barrier to see what's going to go on with La Nina. We're on the fence, 50-50. Are we going to go back into La Nina in the coming fall, or will we move to a neutral pattern? Too early to know, but we'll be monitoring it. Hey, if you like the video, give us a thumbs up. We'd appreciate it. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. You'll get automatic notifications when we post the videos, typically on Sunday nights. If not, go to stormsurf.com. We post the link to the video there right after we post the video, so you can just check it out that way. Comments are always welcome. We try to reply to them. If you have some questions, you don't understand something, I know we throw a lot at you and it's pretty deep. So help reel me back in, ask me some questions, and we'll do our best to respond in a coherent and meaningful way. All right, so that's it for this week. We'll do it again next week. Same time, same channel. Go get some waves. Be safe and take care. Goodbye.